Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sonic Movie Show, the only show that records at all. A lot of shows they don't actually record, and it's just phantoms in their own mind that they're doing. But we're real, and we're also the only show that reviews, that's the R-E word I wanted to say, every single movie based off video games themselves. My name is Ethan, and with me here, looking fine, weirdly tall, compared to his past self, which is like no taller than his shin, is Devin.
Men who blabber lead short lives.
That's true. And you know who doesn't leave a short life? Because he's been buried in that lake for 500 years, is the one and only David. How's it going? Welcome back.
Sound like a WWE intro.
Yeah, he's the Undertaker.
For 500 years. he's back.
Yeah.
Glory be to Creator Jublius.
Nice. Boys.
Wow, very deep.
We're getting deep into this draft that we done, the season of the Sonic Movie Show's video game movie reviews. This is the fourth to last one. We have our third and then our penultimate, which is second to last. I watched a video Devin put out where he thought penultimate meant a different word, and I forgot to mention that in the comments. And then we have our final one. We have 4 of them left here on the channel for this season. And today we watched...
We're in the end now. Dang.
Bayonetta, Bloody Fate, released in 2013. Short-lived theater experience in Japan. And then it came to the Blu-ray.
Best.
And then, a decade plus later, we're sitting here and we watched it. And I want to go around the horn, like we always do, and say hi, hello, introduce ourselves, and then say our experience with the game series, the character, knowledge of all that stuff, and just, before we get in the movie. So I'm going to start with, he's looking me right in the eyes. Not really. He's looking off to my right. Now he's looking me in the eyes. Now he's looking to the left. Now he's kind of looking up. Devin.
On my end, you're on
How
my
can you
left.
tell where I'm looking?
Oh, I was going to say Devin. Devin, what, you Bayonetta?
Hi, my name's Devin. I'm a Pisces. And yeah, we watched this movie, and I was just, really excited to see it because I drafted it in our fantasy video game movie draft. I think it was my second to last pick. You mentioned there's 4 left. Kind of took a flyer on this one. I wasn't really sure what to expect going in. I did play the first game, Bayonetta. I think it's just called Bayonetta.
It is.
I think I played that back in like 2018, 2019. I did beat it. It was very what I liked about it was remind me a lot of Devil May Cry. I grew up with Devil May Cry. Had that kind of action, sword play, gunplay, action in it. I didn't really care too much about the story itself. It was very, very anime, just in terms of some of the tropes that you might get in that. But I did really like a lot of the kind of fantasy or, Catholicism elements of it with the angels. I love all the designs of the angels, and in this movie they, still looked like that, which was really cool. But yeah, I loved that aspect of it. It's like the actual design. Generally speaking, I like witches. I fuck with them.
In general.
Just in general, like conceptually, they're pretty cool.
It's pretty sick.
We did a lot of them, in the early Americas. I feel like we did. They get their own version of reparations, at least culturally.
I agree.
They were being sus.
See, David would 100% been the guy who called his neighbor who's just a single mom trying her best. He would definitely call the police
why was she never
on them.
leaving the house?
David also would be that person that justifies if you drown, then we know you're not a witch.
Yeah, he'd
He'd be like, damn, I'm wrong again. All right, I'll get him next time.
My 10th
it
in a row.
that the method works, though, honestly.
You haven't had a witch kill you.
He doesn't have any neighbors anymore. It's no one lives in the town.
It's only his neighbors he's going after. He just can't stand the noise level. I bet that's a spell. That's the excuse.
But yeah, I liked the first game. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. I liked what I played and whatnot. It was pretty solid. I get why people like it. I have a Switch, and I've never honestly thought about getting the second one. I think I might have seen clips of it and seen the general gist of it. I'm like, yeah, this is more of the first one. That's cool. Maybe one day, and it's been a long time since I said maybe one day. So, I only drafted this
because you played
because
it on Steam,
of
right?
Correct, the first
I
one.
bought you that Steam copy years ago.
I think
because we were going
right.
to do a bunch of YouTube stuff. I bought you Final Fantasy 13 on Steam as well because I was like, I was going to show him this game and I'm going to show him Bayonetta, and then we never did any of that stuff. I'm glad you played
Maybe
it
one day.
I remember you did tell me about
again.
that, but I forgot until you told me now. But I remember you telling me,
Because I streamed Bayonetta, I'm pretty sure. That's for sure. I remember there was a couple boss fights that were really tough, and like my hands were cramping from button mashing a bunch. I had fun with it. It was pretty good, and like I said, I could see why people like it. But I couldn't tell you, like, if you told me to, like, even before going into this movie to recap what happens, I'd be like, oh yeah, like a lot of stuff in this movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen, or I remember this
take
guy.
some liberties and change things.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a fan, but I'm not like a diehard or
You're
maybe one day I'll play the second one. I'm an appreciator. I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it.
Well, Devin, there's 3 of them, and then there's a spinoff as well.
There's 3. I'd say
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
David, I know when we first did our draft, and Devin picked this movie. I don't know the order of events here, so I'm just gonna say it in how it appeared in my mind. I said, "Oh yeah, that was on my list, but further down." And I'm pretty sure you said, "Oh yeah, that was on mine as well," or you said something like of recognition of Bayonetta. So I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of this? I doubt you played it, but surprise me, you do all the time. Have you played, heard, or seen this woman and her video games?
Never played it. Have heard of it. I think it's pretty popular or maybe famous franchise, but I could not tell you what it was about. I didn't know there was witches and angels. I feel like I've seen a clip of, I don't know if you showed it to me, Ethan, of her like strafing on this thing and like shooting a gun at an enormous angel.
Probably.
But that's my only exposure to it.
Perfect. That's all you need, really.
No
it
idea
sums
what
it
to
up.
expect.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm glad you were able to join us for this because then, just like some folks in the audience, you learned a little bit about the gaming world. And now you've grown as a person, a much more mature person. I do have a lot to say about this, so I'm going to try to go as quick as I can for folks that want to just skip, jump, and move on to the review as much as I can.
Backflip.
I will say Devin has played more of the series than I have because I've never finished any of these games. When you said beat, I'm like, damn, I thought I was going to be the one that's like, I've got more experience. But I did play, so the original game came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The 360 version was a little bit better. It actually managed to hit a stable frame rate more often than PlayStation 3.
2009, by the way.
Even though it was developed on PlayStation 3 and then brought to 360. I played the first few levels or stages, rather, of Bayonetta, and then never finished it. And then years later, at a Nintendo Direct, the president of Nintendo at the time announced that they had the sequel to Bayonetta, Bayonetta 2. It's going to be a Wii U exclusive, and I pre-ordered that because I was like, it's a game for the Wii U, and boy, are there not many of them I'm interested in. And I played the first mission of that, where she is going Christmas shopping, and then fights a bunch of demons, not angels in this second game, demons, on top of a pair of Ace Combat-looking jet fighters flying through Manhattan, and it is the most batshit crazy sequence. I'm like, this is awesome! And then I think Smash Brothers came out or something, and I never went back to that game. I own almost all of these multiple times, but I don't own the third game. The third game came out in 2022. Has a different voice actor for Bayonetta because the voice actor, if I remember correctly, had an epiphany about how much a video game costs and how many copies of video games sell, and somehow did the math in her head that she thinks that she should be owed millions and millions of dollars. And when they said, no, we'll pay you the normal rate, she had a rant on Twitter, and then people found out that she's got opinions about vaccines or something. So I guess people just jumped to the conclusion. Actually, she lied. I think that they're great. That's my opinion. But I also think that they can cause radness in a human being. You should be more rad and take a vaccine. There's ones that cure nepotism.
Red weirdly.
I mean,
like
they
rash,
sometimes.
like
Sometimes.
redness.
They do. That does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So Devin
If you're
said.
allergic.
Devin said. I'm sorry. I'm just stopping the jokes here. Devin said Devil May Cry, and that's a good segue because this is made by people that made Devil May Cry. Made by Capcom.
That makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, and so
Like,
these are
straight
people
up.
that left Capcom and formed their own company called Platinum Games, which is a name that is at one point in time was considered like the creators of the greatest action games. Like no one makes them better than Platinum Games. Currently now they're in a really tough spot. Most of the key talent has left because Tencent came in and kind of started buying up. I don't know how they're not a public company, I don't think. But anyway, but yeah, a bunch of Capcom folks made Platinum Games. And they made a deal with Sega pretty much right away where Sega was going to publish the first 4 games that they were to make. They would all be then, the games would be owned by Sega. So Bayonetta is a Sega property. From Bayonetta 2 onwards, they're all co-owned by Nintendo because Nintendo is the one that is mostly funding the Bayonetta games because Sega didn't want to fund the second game. What's the order of events here? They announced they were going to make 4 games for Sega. First was a Wii M-rated game with about a dude with a chainsaw that was in black and white called Mad World. Sold okay.
Mad World.
As one word too, but intercapped. So you know they got that trademark locked.
Whenever it's said.
Exactly. That was in a Gears of War trailer. The second game being a DS space combat strategy game that they co-developed. Third being Bayonetta, and the fourth game being kind of led by Shinji Mikami, creator of Resident Evil and Dino Crisis, a game called Vanquish.
See, it all comes. Saying.
Vanquish is like, what if Gears of War was super cool and you could like lean real back, real low to the ground and jet slide everywhere, and it was a cover shooter. That was a really cool game.
Did you say if Gears of War was super cool?
Yes, I said if Gears of War was super cool.
It's already pretty rad, dude.
It's decently rad enough, but it
Gears
doesn't
of
have
War
that
is vaccinated.
flavor.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
it's
pro-vax,
dead, right?
so.
The pro-vax.
What else? None of the games sold particularly well. They managed to convince Sega to fund and publish one more game, which sold even worse. And then they went on to get recruited by Hideo Kojima, and Konami to actually be the developer behind Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which saved the company for a while. Then they made a bunch of licensed games, which were bad. They made Bayonetta 2 and another Wii U game called The Wonderful 101. Which I didn't buy at the time because I thought it looked kind of dumb. Also sold bad. Bayonetta 2 sold decently fine. And then there was a big Microsoft game called Scalebound that got canceled that they were working on about a dude with like Beats headphones riding a dragon. Looked like it was going to be cool. But then like fans of the Sonic movie show know that a game Devin and I really like is called Nier Automata. They were the developers of that game. They were reached out by Square and Yoko Taro, and they were the devs of that game. Hideki Kamiya, creator of Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, stated that Yoko Taro and Nier saved the company. But then ever since then, they've done maybe a couple things that are okay, like a couple Nintendo-published games, like Astral Chain and Bayonetta 3. But then, Devin, I don't know if you remember... they released a game that I platinumed that was an online service game that came out in 2022. I pre-ordered this game, $60. I streamed an hour of it, said, oh, no, this is ugly and bad. And then Elden Ring came out, and I never went back to it again. Babylon's Fall was like, hey, what if we made one of our high-paced action games, but it was like Destiny, so you got 4-player co-op missions, and it's slow, and it looks like an oil painting, but like in all the ways that look bad. And they closed that down less than a year later. I got the platinum. I got the platinum trophy on that. And they've been kind of, I don't want to say in the toilet, but outside capitalistic influence have said, okay, you don't get the creative freedom you want anymore because we need results, and you came crying to us for money, and so now make us the stuff we want. There's a lot of live service stuff apparently that they're working on, but Kamiya left. Shinji Mikami left years ago. All the key talent has been leaving Platinum. So when we see earlier this month of the time we're recording this, Platinum celebrating the 15-year anniversary of their company, and they had Bayonetta, and we have all this stuff. It's like, well, none of the key people are there anymore, so I don't know how it's going to be. Bayonetta the game, I will say, from what I played and have seen from the series, I can understand where people at the time, back in 2009, that kind of early 2010s era, had this, like, pearl-clutching, look at the, like, objectification of the woman. And this was made by a man, like, the camera angles don't do it any justice. There's a lot of crotch shots and stuff like that. But, like, as time goes on and people, like, get a grip of themselves and get a little bit of a distance, they do recognize, at least compared to other games, and especially a lot of anime, the fact that the character has agency over her own actions, actively chooses to behave, dress, and present herself in that way, and it's actually a part of the character. It isn't just, like, for fun, as far as the games and the story is concerned. And then when we watched our we reviewed, what was that movie called? Dante's Inferno. When we reviewed that, in that review I mentioned how one of the original video game essayists that I had been watching came out with a video a couple years ago about Catholic art in video games. Talked about Dante's Inferno, but it was mainly about Bayonetta. And watching that video kind of made me also know that a lot of actual ancient Catholic art history is weirdly sexual and is weirdly, like, look at the human form and is all about that stuff. A lot of repented or repressed stuff.
Man,
but
man,
you're telling me that priests are restricted, and then this happens?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wait a second.
So Devin probably knows this because I know one of his favorite animes is Neon Genesis Evangelion, or Evangeline, if you never heard anyone say it
Actually,
out loud.
the director of this movie did do Evangelion Death Part 2 or whatever, which is
okay.
I didn't watch that one because basically it's just a condensed version of the TV show, like ending, basically, is my understanding. But whatever. Yes, I saw that, and I was like, he's done a lot of anime, even
nice.
As of 2017.
Nice.
And coincidentally, when you were talking about her having agency and stuff, I'm on IMDb, and I have the Bayonetta Bloody Fate page open. And on IMDb, they always, like, replay, like, trailers from things that are related. And while you were talking about that, there was, like, a preview for some 90s anime where it's about a guy photographer taking photos, and I'm like, okay, and I, like, kept glancing over, I'm like, what the heck is that? And then he starts taking pictures of, like, a girl in a bikini, the girl playing basketball, and the basketball falls, and I'm like, as you're saying all that, that's on the other end, I just have not laughed.
Compared to a lot of other stuff, but I get that on the face value, you see.
Don't know
it
if he worked on that, but maybe he did.
But do you know that a lot of inspiration was drawn from Western religions, specifically Catholicism, but for the most part, a lot of that was just iconography. Similar to how over here we kind of sometimes fetishize, like, the Bushido samurai and all that, and the yokai and spiritualism of the East, that type of stuff. They look at our stuff over here with the same kind of, like, that's super cool and weird, and who the fuck would actually think that? Let's make things like that. So a lot of the designs of the angels are how they are described, like in that one video I mentioned, and I'm probably going to link it in the description of this video if Devin will allow me. He's my boss. Describes how, like, this one angel is like a giant wheel of fire, and then in the video game it's a giant fire snake. And the description talks about how, like, well, people used to think it was a wheel of fire, but actually it's a giant fire serpent angel type of thing. Like, they did their homework, and they did their history.
I would say the same thing. People see planes now and they think they're drones, so anything's possible.
Oh my god! In Jersey specifically, like they used to have the
think they're
Jersey
snakes.
Devil. Now it's just modern military planes and stuff that they think is crazy. So it is weird to see how like this character in this video game, what was once like just the most eye roll inducing, embarrassing like anime of anime is actually like a feminist icon in a sense, and especially like it is in a lot of fashions representative of Nintendo because they co-own most of the series, and like she's in Smash Brothers and shit. So that's my long rant over. Appreciate people that were able to stick through. I would like to now talk about the movie. I'm gonna pass it off to, I guess, the man of the hour, the one who picked it himself. It's not David, guys. If you were listening, Devin mentioned he picked it earlier. Devin, broad strokes here. What did you think about Bayonetta?
Really, you're
Bloody
gonna say
Fate?
broad? You're gonna say, come on, man.
Really?
Have some
Ethan?
taste.
Really?
All right?
I'm sorry. You know, I'm juggling a lot of things right now. I'll repent about it
this
later.
movie. No, yeah, going in this movie, like I kind of hinted at, was I didn't have really any expectations. I was like, hey, I liked the game. If this, is kind of fine, that's pretty good. Later in this draft here, we're taking flyers at this point at the end of the draft. We're just trying to see maybe one of these turns into a B or an A. That's really good. S tier is obviously what you always want, but at this point in the draft, we're kind of like, oh, we'll see what we'll get. So yeah, going in, I was kind of like, we'll see how this goes. I saw it was an hour 30. I'm like, perfect. That's automatically at least 1 out of 5 stars. Because sometimes, as we've talked about,
You're not wrong.
But yeah, I watched this on Crunchyroll since I'm somewhat of a sophisticated guy myself. I watched the anime. I don't know. I'm trying to be like one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you
I
and
got it.
mention
Uh-oh.
there's a joke that's going on visually, and I want to describe why that was funny. I'm very sorry
the
to
twos
interrupt.
in the background?
Yeah, the twos. Just speaking about twos, people have 2 eyeballs, and so obviously you need 2 lenses if you are visually impaired. The character artist for Bayonetta got all of the notes on what was supposed to be the character from Hideki Kamiya, who wanted to make a very specific type of woman, this artist realized, and was very insistent that she wears glasses, knowing it was pretty much a fetish, if anything, like thought it'd be really sexy. So that's why every
you told us to wear
character in the
glasses.
movie in the video game wears glasses, is because the person was teasing Kamiya and was like, well, I guess he must really like glasses, so everyone needs to wear them. I'm sorry, please continue.
That was gonna be my other why I want to add another star was the amount of glasses. Very pro glasses.
Representation,
I think we could take these off now for the bit. Since Ethan acknowledged it. Anyways, this movie was I think for me, maybe it doesn't help that I was also sick watching it, but I just thought it was just kind of fine. Like I wasn't like blown away by it or like felt like I didn't feel like my time was necessarily wasted, but it was also just like it was fine. I don't know if it's something I would necessarily recommend unless you're a fan of Bayonetta, but at the same time, I don't think it falls into the kind of trap that like the Mortal Kombat movie we watched earlier this season, where there's a lot of stuff they don't tell you. If you don't know any of these characters, you have no idea why these characters are interacting, how they're interacting, why the story is happening the way it is. At least this movie like tells you. If you have never seen Bayonetta, you know what at least like what the setting is, why who these characters kind of are. They introduce it, so at least as a standalone thing, I think it does work pretty well. But in terms of an entertainment value, I still think you probably should be a Bayonetta fan. I don't know if you're just an average anime or cartoon enjoyer, that this will necessarily like feel like anything special. I mean, some of the combat's pretty cool, but also at the same time, there was like some parts where, and I watched the Japanese version, I should say. So I just had the subtitles, but even then, like some of the like mouth movements and like little attention to detail stuff wasn't like amazing. Like there were some times where I'm like, they kind of got a little sloppy there with like when she's speaking, and or sometimes she's not moving her mouth at all, and she's talking, which I'm not like.
Is it a thought in her head? Sometimes I get confused.
No, it was definitely her like saying something to the boss that she's fighting or whatever out loud, and I get it. Like I don't mind some of those little things, but I don't know. For like I feel like for this era, I feel like that wasn't, at least my knowledge wasn't as common anymore to kind of like, hey, we can cut a corner here by like zooming out enough so we don't have to draw her mouth moving and all that stuff. But that's just like more of a minor nitpick for me. But yeah, I just think this movie just overall is just fine. And if you like animated kind of movies like this, adult animated movies, this is kind of just, I don't think it's going to be like anything, like I said, special compared to a lot of stuff that I'm sure other people watch from this time. You know, when things like, I don't know, people always talk about like Attack on Titan or whatever, I feel like was around this era. Like in terms of just, I'm talking about like an action aspect of it. I don't think this is going to do anything that crazy for you. You're kind of just like, yeah, it's cool, but
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
I hope that made sense. But yeah, just kind of, I think it's just fine. I think it was cool. Okay. I probably won't ever watch this again. And like I said, I would only recommend it probably for Bayonetta people, unless you're someone
just the
who's
Bayonetta people, like in the game.
Yeah.
Like only they're allowed. Okay.
and you know all that. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it.
Okay. David, what are your thoughts on this movie? As someone that didn't play any of the games.
Yeah, I'm keeping my sunglasses on so I don't have to look Devin in the eyes when I say this next part.
Dang.
No, but I am gonna go for an Ethan-ism here, and I'm gonna say a scathing review right up front and then explain it afterwards. This movie is for a horny teenage boy who has heard of Bayonetta, or a diehard Bayonetta fan, and that's it in my head.
I didn't hear the scathing part. That sounded like A-okay to me.
I am gonna disagree with you, Devin, on the like them setting things up correctly. Like I wrote a note to myself that I didn't even understand what they were doing until 15 minutes were left in the movie when the bad guy explained his plan. I was like,
they really front load all of that. You better pay attention to the first 30 seconds of this movie because we will never repeat this stuff again.
I think I must have missed and I was like,
well, because
I mean,
Bro was in the bathroom. He was like, "Hey, start it. I'm gonna
somebody,
go to bed."
somebody play that. I'm gonna no, but like, sorry, I don't want to talk over you.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, I felt like they could have hinted at it. I didn't even know that it said it in the first 30 seconds or whatever. Like I was trying to pay attention to that first like explanation part, but it just felt like, I mean, some of the action scenes like were like pretty cool. I think you're not wrong on that. Like I think I can totally see where this would be a fun video game. You know what I mean? Like I see the video game part and I'm like, oh, that would be like as this woman like shooting these massive angel gods. Like this seems like it would be fun, but it's like I wouldn't watch a Twitch streamer to play this, you know, let alone a movie. So I said I don't understand anyone's motivations. Yeah, and I just felt like there was just, and maybe this is just, and I don't know Bayonetta. It's just like so.
You don't know
sexual.
her personally, yeah. I wish I did her
personally. Too. It's just like so sexual for no reason. It feels like every shot like has to zoom around, and she's bending over, and it like perfectly gets her ass in it. It's like, why did we need that? Why? This is like, it's animated. This is not like a camera on a swivel. Like you added that in on purpose. Just like always pulling multiple times like the only storage was between her boobs.
Aren't they? Isn't that how you operate?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, which I get like as fine a couple times, but it was like so many times. I was like, all right. Like,
Well, no, she
She
does
didn't
pull
have a
the gun
purse.
out from
She doesn't have a
behind her
purse.
head at one point.
all right, behind
So,
her head. I did
actually-
although, the last thing I'll say was I thought like her like costume with her high heels being just guns, like the tip of the barrel is like the high heel. I thought that was pretty dope. Just like, but that's just Bayonetta, not this movie.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't think. So, but that's kind of my thoughts.
Okay.
Generally.
I am somewhere actually. I'm with both of you on a lot of parts. I might, in some parts, be a little bit. I don't want to say higher than Devin on it. I have a different definition of fine. I guess how Devin said it's fine. I guess I have a different way of saying that they might be seemed a little bit higher. But I am with David in a lot of places. I will say, because you brought up the guns on her shoes. So you have a bunch of different weapons you can get in the game, and you go down to Rodan's bar in between the stages, and that's your kind of shop, so to speak. But by default, yeah, she has the pistols in both hands and on her shoes. The combat in the video games is light attack and heavy attack combo system. Every combination of light and heavy you can think of for like half a dozen buttons is a different move, like combat set. But what made the games really cool, and one of the reasons why people put that up there as like one of the best, action games, like character action games, definitely of its era, if not maybe of all time, is that like, let's say you're pressing, these buttons, attack, light attack, heavy attack. If you were to hold down one of those buttons, she drops the combo, or at least pauses it, and whatever limb was being used for that punch or kick, the gun just keeps shooting, and she kind of holds that position, and you can walk by doing it. So it's a way of like juggling enemies and stuff like that. It really made the whole thing feel like you're designing your combat combos, even though they're all preset in the game and you're choosing whether you can execute them or not. There's a lot of free form fluidity of like, I'm going to drop this one, and then because I want to make sure this guy's still getting damage so I can keep that combo meter up, because at the end of each stage, most players know it says you did like shit even if you won completely, because it's all about that that like, you got to do this as
that's
perfect
where the Devil
as
May
possible.
Cry
Absolutely,
kind of stuff
yeah.
goes into it, where you get a score like you said, and it's like, yeah, if you're
I get
really good
stone
at the
rank
game,
all the time in these games, because like I just survive. But like, that's where the replay value comes in for these platinum games. They're short. Even the Devil May Cry games, they're short because they want you to do it again. You're going to be able to do it better. You're going to try different things. Sorry, I forgot to mention that stuff. So my opinions on the movie. I thought it was all right. I agree with both of you. You would watch this if you liked the games. We're watching, like, I was going to make a joke earlier, and I forgot to do it, about how the only person who is going to watch this that doesn't know Bayonetta is David, because he's contractually obligated to do so under this show.
he's actually a science experiment. He doesn't even realize this, that we're just seeing what will happen to his brain if he watches enough.
That person in the
obscure
background is
video
actually
game
a
movies.
scientist that asks him questions afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It grows me.
Yeah, like I this is definitely for those fans, and a lot of these I don't want to say direct to Blu-ray animes, because this was technically in theaters for a little bit, but a lot of animes like that in Japan were like, it gets a week or two. In Japanese theaters, where it does, I don't know relatively how it would be, but like seems fine there. But it's like, cool, I don't know how the anime industry works to that regard. Maybe they have to, but so like, but for all these like direct to Blu-ray, for the lack of a better word, direct to video types of anime films or OVAs that are based on something, because there's a lot of them that are based on TV shows as well. They are like, assume that you're already a fan and you've already experienced the thing that we're about up until then. I'm not going to, that's not me like justifying or clarifying, not clarifying, like putting out like a blocker of like, these arguments don't work because you should have already known. Here on the Sonic, we don't operate that way. But that is probably where they're coming from. This is an adaptation on that first game story. Second game would come out a year after this movie does, so that's the only material they have. I watched the Blu-ray, the English Blu-ray of it, and so I had the English dub with the original game's voice cast. That is technically the canonical cast because the original game did not have Japanese voice acting. It was English only. So the actual voice actors in Japanese for this movie would then become the voice actors in 2 and presumably 3 onwards. But I think it was fine and all right. A lot of the action was cool, and I saw enough of it. But at the same time, I'm with David on like the motivations. Like Bayonetta herself, and I didn't finish the game. So, but I'm assuming based off what I remember of that, she is kind of just she is herself. She doesn't really share information unless it benefits her. She kind of playfully teases the people who are actively helping her, even. But she's not like a bad person or anything like that. But a lot of that type of stuff is kept inside. But the result of that is, for this movie's sake, me not really knowing what the hell she wants to do. At the beginning, we see her fighting the angels in the cathedral. In the video game, it's in a cemetery. Am I to assume that they just showed up to attack her, or was she in disguise there? I don't know. She kind of just, when things happen to her, okay, I'll follow that. But like, what does she want besides to know who she is, which is valid? But what's your method? You know what I mean? Like, assuming that none of the stuff wasn't happening to you, what was your plan on doing this stuff? For the guy, I forgot his name, but the journalist who's voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, who is Spider-Man in the video games and is in the Persona and all these anime types of stuff. He's a very distinct voice. Like, I get it. He wants to expose Bayonetta because he blames her very understandably for the death of his father. But, like,
it's pretty
what
fucked
was he
up,
trying
though,
to do?
It was pretty funny, though, like, in a fucked up way, how she's just like, oh, yeah, like, because she doesn't know, obviously either, because she has like memory loss basically.
She just gained consciousness in that moment.
But I like that she's like isn't curious and like it's like, oh, that sucks that I maybe killed your father, but I'll keep you around. I
also get the impression that she probably would have seen the angels anyway, so she could just say, no, there were guys that did that. That wasn't me. But that's a part of that, like, she's not a very sharing person as far as communication wise, right?
I'll say my interpretation of like you asked. I
was just gonna say, like, what was his plan? He wants to expose her, but like take a photo of her and like look at this kinky lady.
Well, at the end he writes a book about it because I think he's trying to just show that these exist. That's why he's trying to get her on film multiple times because like I don't think anyone believes her. Or believes him that like she exists or witches exist and this other world, this purgatory exists and whatnot. So his sole purpose is he's also the comedic relief, I think. Sure. Even in the games,
he is the straight man to the funny man type of thing of like we're gonna dump stuff on you and
which is like reaction. I said, it is kind of weirdly funny considering he has kind of like a messed up reason why he's even following her in the first place. Of like I lost my father, but I'm the comedic relief the whole time.
Yeah.
Which I think is. I'm not saying I love that, but I just think it's, I guess, different than just being like a lot of video games that have comedic relief where it's just like, I'm the guy who's a little clumsy and maybe I give you a gun or like I help you.
Sure. And what's funny,
there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. Devin, you mentioned comedic relief. And that's what we're talking about right now. But my point is that you actually finished the game. Enzo, the fat, short guy in the hat, he is definitely the comedic relief in the video game. And this movie portrays him like an ultra asshole-ish. Like, yeah, he's an opportunist, but he's also a clumsy fool who isn't that bad of a guy. In this movie, he's just like preying upon.
If I remember correctly,
people
though,
people
he's not.
Die.
I feel like if I remember correctly, he's only in it like in the beginning, and then he pops up here and there when the photographer he shows up more. But like I said, I haven't played this game.
He's also in the second game as well, and he's used for comedic relief.
Because like that bar area is where like you go after you beat a level and you unlock new weapons or upgrade your weapons with, if you did the level certain quality, you get X amount of points, I think, or whatever how it worked. So that's what my memory of it was, and I'll say there was a little like lore dump in the beginning, but like I said, I still think that was way more than like the Mortal Kombat movie we watched gave us.
It was a lot.
Not saying, and it was a little bit like it's not
that
easy
was where
lore
it's
dump
like,
either.
hey,
It was
if you
like
didn't play the video game, you better pay attention now because I guess fuck you.
I'm saying I'm giving it credit because we've watched a lot of these where it's just like, oh, we know you know all this
tried
stuff,
at
so
least.
yeah. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I'm saying I'll give it more credit than compared to Mortal Kombat or even like some of the. I'm sure. Well, we have a Persona movie coming up, and I think that's going to be really tough for David, who hasn't seen the other two. I have a
I
feeling
think it
that
might be
movie's
tough
gonna,
for you and me as well.
yeah, it's just going to start. So I think I want to give it credit for that, but I'm not going to say it's like a huge
We've seen better
award-winning
versions of the
but,
idea for sure. I will say,
I just wanted to kind of clarify.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with like David. That's why I like that David didn't know anything, because I think part of it why I feel like it was easier for me to understand was because I'm like, yeah, this is from the games. Yeah, I know this character's motives or why she's doing this. She basically is going on hunts, is my kind of thing, and since she has that memory loss, she kind of doesn't know. All she knows is her sole purpose is to hunt these.
It's just
angels,
find something related to hopefully St. John.
In the sake of the video game, it's super kind of
well, like what David said.
you're like, we're
it
trying
is
to get
just,
you in combat.
It is just
things,
about the video game to play. Like that is
Yeah.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
They did a lot of history homework to make this world. I actually had to pause the movie when they first say the religion and be like, I'm pretty sure it is just Catholicism. Did they make up a name for the movie? Like, no. I guess I was wrong on that, but yeah, I mean, it is a game first and foremost. That is meant to be just fun to play. I don't think in this movie made changes. They could have made better movie changes, better story changes.
I was hoping like after each fight, like she would learn something if that's what she was trying to do, which I didn't know until you guys just told me, honestly. And they don't explain her powers really, which is like, I guess it's fine.
She's
in
an
the
Umbra
beginning.
witch.
It's like mysterious. It's
we'll
like
figure it out as we go.
Mysterious,
Yeah.
but it's like she just used like these weird god summoning powers where like this enormous like wolf snake is like, wait, why aren't you using this all the time? You don't look drained after you use it. Why are you not using this?
And that's part of the game.
Why?
But yes, what you're saying, absolutely.
You know what I mean? There's no.
I mean, that's the same
just so
logic though with
confusing.
Dragon Ball. Though, like, why don't we just
Right.
power up from the very beginning and just beat his
Devin,
ass
they
right
do,
now?
and it takes episodes long to power up.
But you know what I mean? I mean, to me, I don't have any issue with that because I feel like I've seen that in plenty of like power
I'm not,
leveling, like anime or
anime.
just like action, not action. Sorry, like even like fantasy, where like the wizard just does these things because he.
Why didn't the
kind
Eagles
of,
fly
like,
there into
yeah.
Mordor? They didn't, so that you could have a story.
I don't
But
think that's
I'm not disagreeing.
I think in
with
this,
you.
I'm
For the sake
going to
of this
say in
movie,
this example,
sure.
I think it's more of just like, even if you add the video game element of it, it'd be like, because it's cool. Like, why does she have guns on her heels? It wouldn't make sense, but it's.
I mean,
cool.
there are many
So
ways we can
that's what I look
justify
at
it on a way that might be thinking more than line with what the movie shows. Because it's like, why would you show your enemy your strongest power? Because what if it's not enough? Blah blah blah. You're trying to show off and doing this and that. Like, there are many ways in which a person can justify not going all out right away.
I'm just
But
saying. I was just.
the movie doesn't say why she doesn't do that all the time. In the video game, it's something you power up to do. It isn't something
like you
she
get.
can
I
just
think
do
enough
at all.
combos.
Yeah,
or like
it's just whatever,
you do
a
enough
meter. Let's
damage.
just call it
Yeah.
a meter.
Yeah.
That fills up, and then you get to
But,
do
like,
it. They also don't
they can
explain and
easily
don't do the
just
fact that she
show
has all
that.
these torture execution moves with like lots of.
That's
like,
fair.
There
Yeah, I
was like
forget
the
about
horse
that.
one at the end, but in a lot of the games, a lot of these execution moves
Trojan
are.
horse at the end.
Well, because strap
that
her
was
to
the
a
bondage,
sexy horse and
bondage
then
Trojan
blow her up.
horse. All right.
Yeah.
Bondage Trojan horse. Don't knock it till you try it. All right.
I mean, there's like the treadmill, and then all of these execution things are just torture devices that she does to these angels. And we also didn't mention another character. Devin, you said, "Oh, it does like reminds you a lot of Devil May Cry." Well, Devil May Cry. Dante had Virgil. His stronger, more morally gray, if not maybe sometimes an antagonist counterpart. Bayonetta has a Virgil, and that is Jean. The high school teacher. I feel like we were
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I always called her Jean, but but I know it's the way that the accent sounds more like Jean. But she's in the movie a little bit. I don't know how much she is in that first game.
She was a boss fight. If I'm not, that was one of the harder ones I remember. Is you fight her like on the side of a building or on a skyscraper, and I remember like dying like a lot, and I was like getting really frustrated. And that's where my hands were like really. I remember like more specifically that boss fight was the one where like it really was the hardest because it was just because she had a lot of similar move sets as you, and you had to like. And I wasn't very good at dodging.
That's the other thing.
Game.
When you dodge at the last moment, time slows way down for everything except for you. Which time? So that also ended up to the
they didn't even do that in this at all.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, she's in the original game. From what I'm remembering too, a lot of the story in the first game is in this. With like, I think some parts are either condensed or cut, and some parts are way longer than I remember. I'm sure maybe I'm misremembering some parts of it, but like there's one part where she's going through quick driving a motorcycle through a town. I swear that was like a whole level where she goes to that town and.
I mean,
you
probably.
have to like defend.
Think about an action stage.
What's her name? Herself, I guess,
Yeah.
as a young kid.
Cereza.
But yeah, Cereza.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we mentioned her, but the younger self. I'm just gonna say this. I hated this character. Just because it's one joke is that
because you hate children.
I hate children. The one joke is that. She refuses to acknowledge the correction of the names of the characters that say, like, like, I'm not your mom. That's okay, mommy. Like that type of thing over and over again. I'm like, I get it.
Bayonetta does that with the photographer.
To be fair, it's true as well. And that joke of like where she calls him by his actual name, Luca, and then he does flip flop. I'm like, he could have pulled that off better, but. I know that type of joke, that punchline reaction, is a very Japanese thing. So maybe the way like that language is parsed, where subject and noun and verbs and all that stuff, maybe that fits better with how that language is. Because whenever I've seen that type of what type of punchline to like realizing things are being said, not how you thought, even though it's all very long sentence. I think must play better in Japanese than in English does, because I thought that fell kind of flat. But yeah, that character I feel like was just like you said around for the ride to be a bit of a punchline, and also to babysit, which I thought was like okay, but you're not doing anything with this opportunity in the story. You know what I mean? Like the character doesn't learn anything.
No weight.
He doesn't have to choose to. What if it's like I could expose her right now, but then the child gets hurt, and so I choose. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's nothing.
There's such an opportunity,
and it's not.
She can't save the world.
Yeah.
It's like Superman. We're gonna lock up Superman when he has to save us.
That's true. But he chose to stay locked up because he could just get out. It's not like you have enough kryptonite to put him in a box.
It's about institutions, Ethan. All right.
Devin and I have learned recently that even if you outright say, yeah, there's a lot to like in here, if you say anything critical about it, you must hate the movie. So I do want to say some positives about this movie.
Yes.
This comes out after.
I know. No one's going to know what we're talking about.
Whatever.
Just go on one of our TikTok videos or Instagram videos, and you'll see
probably
people
address
thinking
it in that as well. I want to say some positives. I think the animation is a lot better than I expected. Because we've seen the first two Persona 3 movies that seemed fine. Obviously, like the Mortal Kombat anime movies, it's American animation, which is technically different. I get it. I always thought they seemed on a technical level adequate. It never blew me away, but they weren't bad or anything like that either. This has a little bit of a style to it, a little bit of I like the colors in it, blah blah blah, the animation and the fights, etc. They kept the weirdly proportioned character designs. We're like, yeah, Bayonetta's got some long ass legs, and I thought it was just her, and then Luca's standing taller than her, and I'm like, bro, how is this possible? Little baby Bayonetta looks like she is like, I don't know, at your ankles. How is this possible? But I liked the fact that they like, are like, no, screw it. This is what this looks like. So I thought the animation was good. The movie uses the game's music in a lot of places. That first combat sequence is, I think, the very first combat sequence in the game's music as well. They didn't play
I even think some of the sound effects, I'm pretty sure, are from
might
the game.
be.
Too.
I mean,
they
got the files.
Sounds and punch sounds. Yeah.
They did fail. I understand it's a licensing thing, but Bayonetta has the greatest cover or version of the classic song, and Devin's going to disagree. The band has the best version of the song "Fly Me to the Moon," and obviously they didn't put it in this movie because they probably would have to pay for it. And no one ever wants to pay.
I'm a big fan of that song. All right, so
well, it's in your Evangelion. That's why I assume.
It's in there. I mean, it's been covered in so many different.
It was supposed to be in
ways,
something that had a re-release, and it wasn't, because whoever owns the rights to that famous song just wants billions of dollars.
I'm pretty sure the song was also written I thought Frank Sinatra.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to. I was afraid I was going to look like an idiot.
I'm pretty sure he was like one of the first, or at least popular ones, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it's like a family-owned song at this point. It's like,
and like, fuck it.
If it was Frank
What else are we gonna
Sinatra,
get?
I mean, it's a long time ago. But
yeah, and I liked the voice acting, and I thought Rodan was just cool. He, to my knowledge, is exactly the way he's in the game. He's
he
just
didn't
a
look
cool
like a
guy.
bird, though. It was kind of interesting. He didn't look like a big prehistoric bird.
Shut up.
Which is...
That's a Godzilla thing. What else? What else?
Means.
Rodan's like one of the
he's one of the
OG,
monsters.
like Godzilla. Yeah, he has his own standalone movie too back in the 50s.
And he was in Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I saw
came
with
out of
Devin
Volcano.
in theaters, and I did not fall asleep at any point because I was laying down too far in the seat and got too comfy. I liked. It's weird for me to put this because honest to God, like if we weren't doing this show and for whatever reason we watched this movie for fun on our own and said, "Hey, Ethan, what did you think about the movie?" I'd be like, "I don't know. It was pretty good. I guess it was fine. I guess." Because it just has that level of like, I liked it, but it didn't inspire anything out of me. Unlike David, I don't have a scathing review to say about it, good or bad, because it didn't inspire that level. Because like we've seen good movies and bad movies here, and none of the movies David has drafted have been bad, obviously, and none of the movies,
according to David,
of course, and us. I mean, there are a lot lower letters in the alphabet than E, David. Duh. E is like the fifth letter.
Z.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think ultimately it almost comes down to if you enjoy anime, you might be fine with this. If you don't, this is a brutal movie to watch. It's just so boring and lore packed, and it's just action sequences that are just fine.
It is for fans of the genre.
For
sure.
I just cannot, like, if I was not being forced to watch this, I cannot imagine making it through 15 minutes of this movie.
She's taking her notes in the back there. Okay, the subject said forced to watch. We gave him an opportunity to watch it. So this is his interpretation of the offer. Okay, interesting.
And that's what I was trying to like point out.
No, I agree with you.
Say in the beginning was like, I don't think this is like, I would not, if we weren't doing this, I would not, and even if I loved this, I probably still wouldn't recommend it to David.
I like the games fine as someone that never finished any of them. So it
would
have been on my it would have been on my
really,
radar
unless,
to be like
Bayonetta.
Yeah, I could watch this. I would probably want to finish the games first, and knowing me, that would never happen. But
the only time I'd recommend it is like if someone was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about buying a Bayonetta game," I'd be like, "Oh, well, you could like go watch these action sequences in this game, and you'll know what it feels like, and then you can just go play the game." Like that's like the benefit is like, oh, it feels like I'm
or like
playing
the
Bayonetta
vibes,
without any agency or
Mickey,
ability to choose. It's just like taking you through,
Yeah, like this is clearly
this captures the vibes of the games
for people that played the game and liked the game. Not to say
so if
that
you like this, you would
can't
like the
watch
game,
it without playing the game and can't be reviewed as such. But I mean, it's the same thing with the Persona movies. Like Devin didn't play any. No, Devin. I don't know if Devin had played Persona 4 a bit before we watched the first movie. I think you might have.
Yeah.
But still, man, I kind of forced that on him because I bought it for him on Steam and it said, stream this.
I liked it.
But he didn't play Persona 3. It's in that vein of like hell yeah, they're making an anime movie on one of my favorite games. Cool, it's for them, and I'm sure the budget was low. A lot of anime, that industry is well, like a lot of industries, is fucked on paying for labor in the correct amounts or in more justified amounts. A lot of things are rushed, so despite the way the industry is, it looked pretty good. 90 minutes is pretty A-okay by me. We say on the Sonic Movie Show, 90 minutes good, but if this movie is fucking amazing, I do want it longer.
Us more, yeah.
But like, you can start at 90, and then that's where the bidding begins. You know what I mean? Like,
I mentioned it in a video that hasn't come out yet, but should be out by the time this maybe goes up.
It's like a couple weeks from now.
Okay, yeah. So it's been out. The Damned, I mentioned.
Thank you for watching it and liking it.
Yeah. Where I mentioned the same thing because that movie's an hour and a half, and I'm not like super black and white on it. I think you can make a really good, great 3.5 hour movie. You also can make a really great 80-minute movie or even an hour movie. It always depends on, like you said, like if it's good, give me more. If you're not as confident in it, that's fine. Just make it an hour and a half, or maybe it doesn't need to be any longer because the story is what you're trying to tell is straightforward and can be knocked out in that time. It's always. To me, it's always about what type of story or what you're trying to tell in it, So I agree with that though, 100%. Where, if it's great, give us more. But
can I ask? I've heard Ethan mention a couple times that the animation was okay or good. When was this made? And is this? I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that animation is easy. I don't mean that when I say the next, but
2013 is when it came out.
It's not that crazy to make crazy fight scenes when it's just drawing on a page. You know what I mean?
I will say this.
This is not live action fight scenes.
They still have to be. I will say this. They still have to be choreographed. Devin and I watched a movie that came out in theaters recently, and we made the scathing critique that some of the combat didn't seem like it was choreographed all that well, and those characters were animated. Folks that are very internet savvy and or maybe poisoned that were around on the internet a lot during the mid to late 2000s must have seen a lot of machinima animations by a guy named Monty Ohm, who would eventually work with Rooster Teeth to make Ruby. He made a lot of he took character models of the Dead or Alive girls and Tifa from Final Fantasy, and then Master Chief was in it, and just had him fight. And those are the types of videos where I would say, and David, I'm not being facetious here, and neither is David with his statement of how hard could it be when you're drawing it. I've seen plenty of bad fight scenes in animated movies or anime as well.
I think we've seen
I've seen
video game
excellent ones as well. And I would point to these Monty Ohm videos. Yeah. I don't know what any of them are called, but I'm sure you could Google Monty, and I don't know how you spell Ohm. Maybe it's O-H-M, whatever, and see some of them. Fighting Fantasy might have been one of them. I don't know. But the choreography of the fights is very, very cool. Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, not a good movie besides the fight scenes because they were good anime fight scenes. People love to point at Dragon Ball, where a lot of the fights is just rapid punches and then charging and stuff like that. It's cool in its own way, but they ain't doing too much with their choreography, and I understand that's dated.
And those
I don't watch a lot of modern
in the 80s. You know what I mean? That they set the standard for what those fights are. To be fair,
especially since Dragon Ball was supposed to be a comedy until the tournament arc did so well that orders have come in and changed. You now need to make this like this all the time. I've seen a lot of modern anime stuff where the fights, due to budget reasons, which also means time restraints as well, their fights are either short, and there's not much going on because you can't manipulate the environment too much or zoom out too much, etc. Movies are a little bit different in their scope, but generally speaking, there's a lot, I don't want to say worse, but there's a lot more bland fighting and animation and whatnot out there than this movie.
I
I
think
don't
this
want to
has
go
better-
ahead and say this is one of the best things
Yeah.
I've ever seen. I hope that's not what I came across earlier. But it is a positive to me because, much like the movie as a whole, this is better than I expected. And it does
I think it's
match
fair. I
the
think it's-
games better than I thought they were going to do.
I think, like I said, I pointed to I haven't watched Attack on Titan, but I've seen enough glimpses of it and understand the kind of style to it. And it felt very much like that in terms of, hey, we're going to zoom in on the character's face, then kind of do like this pan out of them holding the sword to kind of show the flash of the weapon, and then I'm going to strike down the Titan or the enemy, whatever it is. It's like almost like a crash zoom effect that I don't think Attack on Titan was the first to do this. I think it's been done in plenty of other anime, I'm sure. I'm just pointing to it because it was big around this time, and I can see them being like, we should just do that. But a lot of the fights also do look a little bit like pretty close to the choreography that's in the game, so I'm sure they were able to reference that. I'm not going to say this was like, holy shit, like the fighting choreography in this was like top-notch or anything. Like I wasn't like so blown away by it, but I was like, oh, you know, if I'm watching this and I want the action, I'm at least getting that. I'm not going to say it was amazing, but I don't think it was bad. I think it's just, it was above average-ish, I think, is where I would put it.
Yeah.
One more thing I'll
I
say.
think I
One more
agree
thing,
with
if I
that.
can just say one more thing.
Okay. Yeah, go
and
ahead.
then the floor is yours, David. Dragon Ball does the thing I'm going to say, and is maybe hypocritically speaking, the only time where I'm like, actually, this is rad that they do this. But so many modern anime, and probably anime that isn't modern still does this as well, but a very typical thing of the genre of the fighting types of animes, the shonen types of boy anime. We have a huge cast of characters, and each one's got their own little thing going on. They all can fight and blah, blah, blah. Is they'll often have fight scenes between two people, and almost every single fight scene needs to have an audience, whether that be a person or two, because the way this genre works, for budget reasons, is person A just does a move on person B. We then cut to the person watching and get their reaction, and oftentimes their explanation of what just happened. Because guess what? We're not drawing. We're not drawing the fight itself. And so it's a lot of cut back and forth.
This is actually very informative.
There's a very popular anime, and I don't know why, and I'm sure I don't want to be mean. It's called My Hero Academia, and I was pitched on the anime series as like, hey, what if in a world where most of the people had superpowers to some degree, there was clearly a Superman who was the strongest, and he was secretly dying, so he gives his power to a boy that has no powers. And I'm like, cool, I like Superman, I like this idea, I'll watch it. I gave that motherfucking show a season and a half try, and I hated it the whole time because they get to a tournament arc in that second one, and most of the goddamn episodes are watching people watch the fights. Because guess what? We're not drawing the fights themselves this way, and we're saving a lot of time and money on this stuff. And I just find it so annoying that we're like, someone could do just a basic, like, I'm going to go punch you, but the other guy's so quick that he's already behind you, and we need to get a reaction to that. So
That's
seeing
also
anything that doesn't do that automatically gets a star for me. I don't know how many stars I have at the top, but at least gets 1 star for not doing the audience reaction of like, no way! But when Krillin does it, when
movies do
Goku fights
the
Vegeta,
same
I
thing,
think it's
too.
cool as fuck. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying kaiju movies have been doing that since the very beginning too, because of budget reasons as well, where it's like, and I just think there's also an argument to be like, oh, maybe you can relate to being the bystander because you are kind of a bystander as an audience member.
Yeah.
Not saying I have my critiques of it as well, because I think they do it still to this day too much in modern Godzilla movies.
And Devin,
where
if you
we
and I
need
were to ever fight, I sure as fuck want an audience watching and reacting the same
that'd be
way.
sick. I would love if
I'd
David
be
was
on the
there, being like,
sideline.
"Oh my
Yeah,
God, Ethan used his
What?
upper punch.
Yeah.
Devin blocked.
Devin's
it
not
with
going to
his
have enough
calves.
time. He's not going to be able to charge in enough
This
time.
is the
Devin's-
Mega Dunk.
Yeah.
There was in like old Ultraman episodes. It was almost every episode. He had this a
does like this
little
thing,
sphere. Well, he has his power, but he has a little sphere on his chest that would start blink, like it's always lit up, but it would start blinking red when he was low energy or like weak. Even if they show it, I swear almost every episode I would watch of it, someone has to mention, oh, his power level is too low, in case this is the first time someone watched an
Sure,
Ultraman.
gotcha, sure.
You know what I mean? But it was like, it would start ringing, dee-doo, 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 and he's like, oh shit, Ultraman's got to lock in
Hey,
here.
just like
He's
Pokemon.
fucked. Yeah. So I feel you. I think it's just a trope in like cartoons, and I'm sure it probably goes back to something we can't even reference because we don't know the knowledge of that. But,
yeah. But like again, the fact that this movie doesn't do that, it gets the acknowledgement of like this is better, relatively speaking, than a lot of what I've seen, and on top of that, it matched the game pretty well. I'm like, cool. If I wanted to give it that like this is awesome, I would have seen straight up combos from the video game being portrayed. Then I'd be like, all right, you went the extra mile with this. They did a pretty good job, I think already though. But I'm sorry, I cut David off earlier, and
we're censoring David.
I don't know if I want to hand the floor back over to him, Devin.
I shouldn't have started out with my scathing Ethan take. No, I guess for me, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm comparing this to other live action games. I don't give it a star because like it doesn't get bonus points because it's not trash in my mind. It's like, it's not
on the video game movie scale though. On the video
game
on the
curve, motherfucker.
That's fine. That's bonus points, but you don't get points because it's like, this isn't a college animation project in my mind. It's like, was the animation good here? It was fine. I understood what they were doing. I understood like the moves that were going on, but there was some blurriness. There was like fast movements where you couldn't really tell. It's like, I don't know. In my mind, it's like, I don't watch anime, so when I watch things like this, it's like, it's just fine. This is not getting bonus points from me. Because it's not like
I'll give you the bonus point anyway. Don't worry.
The college animation projects that you guys are watching to give this bonus points.
The scientist in the background is not happy with how you're grading the action. Hey, that's fair. That's a very fair.
It's so much funnier with the sunglasses on because it's like you're like a studio exec being like, you think you're talented? You have no idea what talent is. I've seen so much more.
Yeah. But I don't want it to come off of like one of the things at the start of this review that I said is that I thought some of the fights were cool, and I stand by that. I think some of the fights were cool. And
put that on the back of the box.
That was good.
David from the Sonic Movie Show. Some of the fights are cool.
This is not like crazy animation.
Well, that's not what I claimed either. To be fair,
going up a grade for me because of the animation. Is all I'm saying.
At the very least, though, it does sound like we're all unanimous of like this was serviceable, if not pretty good, decently fine. None of us are like this is bad.
I'll say on a video game movie curve.
For sure. It is what it is, and what it is ain't the worst and ain't, all that bad. We've seen worst. The last movie we watched, I mean, have you seen Sonic 3? No, I'm kidding.
I don't even remember what we watched last.
In the Name of the King was the last one on the director.
Solid movie.
Movie, boy, the action in that movie. But we're not comparing these movies on that front.
The action of that movie up against
don't even
that
start.
Is some wish fulfillment revisionism if I ever saw
it. We're not going back,
we're not going back. We did what we did.
We are going back actually.
Well,
we're going back.
Yeah. We might stay there for a while. All right. So, hey, why don't we explain what we do here? Here on the Sonic Movie Show, boy golly, we review these movies, and we give them a letter grade, S being the best, and then we have A through F, F being the worst. Here are the movies we've done so far on the draft. As you can see, we're lined up right underneath all of our picks. This is Devin's penultimate pick. His second to last pick, Bayonetta Bloody Fate. He's going to gain points based off the letter grade that we give it. Before we get into each of our definitive letters, which we then have to come to some sort of conclusion together as a group, which is usually easier than said than done, honestly. For the most part, we're in a very similar line. There are times where, like, David's like, this movie's an S, and we're like, David, we didn't even watch that movie. What are you talking about? You sure you're on the right podcast? But for the most part, we come to the same conclusions, or at least in the ballpark. Before we actually go one by one, 1. I want. Last time I picked on David. I'm gonna go back to Devin this time because it's
Damn.
been a while. It's been a while.
Been a while.
It's been one time.
As far as recording has gone, it's been a while. All right.
True.
I was a little rusty, and I almost didn't even prep this document.
First one of 2025.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Devin,
Dang.
I think it's 3 minutes. It might be 2. I don't know how long this video file is that appears on the screen here. Explain our tier ranking system for these movies in 3, 2, 1. Go. Nope, that's not it. Sorry. Go.
Well, are you kidding me? You can't.
All right, I'll
start
catch you.
with
I'll
that.
Go.
5, 4. Don't clap. 3, 2, 1. Go.
Here on the Song Movie Show, we have a curved system that divides movies that we've watched into S, A, B, C, D, E, and F ranks. Starting with S here is video game movies specifically, that are super special, one of a kind, highly recommend. These movies are amazing, very good for a video game movie, and they have that special sauce. Sometimes it changes on what that special sauce is, but you know it when you see it. You get the vibes, and you're like, cool, great. There's not many movies on this list, and that's probably a good thing, because if we had too many movies in S, we'd be frauds, I think. Next, we get to A. A tier is missing that special sauce from S tier, but still very, very good movies. We like a lot in these movies. Very few critiques, and if they are any critiques, it's probably very minuscule, and we're just kind of nitpicking. Just really great movies. Highly recommend these as well. We have movies like Super Mario Brothers in there, and the Super Mario Brothers movie. You can try to remember which one is which. Next, we have B tier, which we have kind of saved for movies that are still pretty good. Probably we like more things than we dislike. As more good than bad. That ratio kind of changes once again depending on our discussion and how we're feeling about things. But we have movies in here like Dead or Alive, the more recent Mortal Kombat. We've had Ni no Kuni on here, and the original Resident Evil, and the original Silent Hill. Then we get to our tier that is just, average C, as in there's about maybe 50% good, 50% bad. Just, it's fine. It's cool. It's whatever. Maybe sometimes it's a little boring, but for the most part, we enjoy ourselves. We have pretty much all the Resident Evil movies on here, the live action ones more specifically. We have Advent Children that Ethan mentioned earlier on here. We have Corpse Party. We even have Angry Birds on here. And this is where most of our movies fall, which kind of makes sense for the sake of a curve. And maybe it's like more of a bell curve. Bell curve, yeah. Next, we have D, which is, could be D for disappointing or, whatever you want to think.
D for
Doom.
Doom.
D.
Doom. Disassociated.
Yeah, D for, is more bad than good. It's like the opposite of B, where there might be some good stuff in here, but most of it's bad or we don't like it. So we have movies like Assassin's Creed in there, Doom, Hitman, Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. Man, I felt like forever ago we watched that, but damn, what a stinker, huh?
I watched it on my PSP.
You did. And then next we have E. E tier is for the downright bad. There's like almost no good qualities in this, if at all. We've had our debates about this tier quite a bit, I feel like the last couple episodes. But yeah, E tier is downright bad. Mortal Kombat Annihilation's on here, Monster Hunter, Blood Rain, King of Fighters. And then last but not least, or actually very least, F. F tier is for movies we think are not just bad, but just downright awful. Would never recommend these. We would recommend pirating these movies because it's just so bad. And sometimes it's downright offensive. It's more of the offensive tier, honestly. And we only have one movie there. Hope to never have a movie there again. We have Postal. Don't watch that movie. God, what an embarrassment to film.
I would think it would be funny if we could have another movie down there, but I just don't want to watch a movie that's that bad.
Yeah, we're having a bad day.
Yeah.
For doing
this
that.
is the point distribution for those tiers. So Devin will get either 6 through 0 points, depending on how this movie fared in our overall opinions. The counterpoint column there does nothing for this episode. Will pop up for our last 2 movie reviews, since the 2 of you have each counterpicked your last movies. I'm interested to see how that's going to shake out. So,
Same.
with these descriptions in mind, audience, feel free at home to come to your own conclusion. I hope you watch the movie at the very least before you do come to that conclusion. I want to start with the man of the hour. I said that joke before. I'm going to say it again. He drafted this movie. Devin, what did you think about this movie? That's what I said before. What grade? What do you get? Speak your mind.
Well, this letter starts. Or wait, how am I supposed? This movie is right where the letter starts. Just kidding. No, I think this is. I mean, I would love to give this a B, but if I'm being frank, I think this is in one of the. I think this is in like the middle to lower tier C for me. I think this is. I mean, I kept saying fine, and like to me, that's what C is. It's like it's fine. It's maybe not memorable, but it wasn't like necessarily bad. Like I didn't like hate my time watching it. Like I was just kind of like it's fine. For me, like to get into D, it would have to been like, man, I hate this. This sucks most of the time, and I didn't really feel that way. My opinion on it, I think, even after discussion and what we've discussed, stays the same. Where, yeah, if you like Bayonetta, you're gonna like this, and that's really the target audience for this. I did appreciate that they did try to tell a little bit about what this story is, in case you haven't seen Bayonetta for whatever reason. But I really don't think most people will be watching this if they haven't heard or played Bayonetta, and this is definitely for folks like that. I think this is similar in that regard to like movies like Mortal Kombat that we watched, or even Fatal Fury, Legend of the Hungry Wolf, where hey, if you like this stuff, you'll like this. You'll like this. It has the same vibes as the games, and I think we have even a thing we've talked about in the past where we do give it a little bit of credit too if it does try to actually, connect with the game or be like the games in some capacity. It isn't always a requirement for me personally, but I think it does a good job of, like I said, capturing the vibes of the game and making references to the games, and isn't ashamed of. If anything, this is probably, out of a lot of the movies we've watched, we got to give credit to this movie for not being ashamed for what Bayonetta is.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't try to change Bayonetta in any capacity. This is exactly how she is in the games, or in what the games are like, as opposed to some other movies we've seen where they're like, hey, it's based off the game, but we're going to go a different direction. Even if that direction is good.
What if
it still
Marines in the Desert? And we're going to title that movie Monster Hunter.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is an easy C. I really like. I know a lot of movies fall here, like I mentioned, and I think this kind of just fits the bill for a C for me, just on a scale of what we've watched. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like. I don't know. I think it's a pretty easy C, but yeah, I don't know.
I'll go next. I'll say I'm right there with you. This is the definition of C for this. If I was around a bunch of people who are like really championing this movie, I could maybe see their points and maybe raise myself up to a B if I was convinced enough. But I feel like, I mean, we said this, our descriptors of this movie was like, yeah, it's pretty fine. It's pretty, I like it. Yeah. Well, there's a lot more that it could do, but a lot worse it could do as well. I think this is right smack dab in the middle. Yeah, you mentioned Mortal Kombat and Fatal Fury. Like you said, like, hey, if you're fans of the thing, here is more of the thing. This time you'll watch it instead. And for those, a little bit worse, But another movie that is doing that for sure, Resident Evil Damnation from this season as well.
That's fair.
And we were higher on it because it is a good example of like, granted, Mortal Kombat. Well, actually, I don't. Mortal Kombat is, generally speaking, an idea of that idea from the game. The interpretation is a little bit different. Fatal Fury is that very, very first Fatal Fury. But Resident Evil is, I guess, a chunk within the timeline that they've made, to be fair, but still the same idea. If you're a fan of Resident Evil, yeah, you'll watch this. If you're not a fan of Resident Evil, you still would like it, at least enough, more than you might like this one. But I'm with you on the C. David, it all comes down to you. You hold the power in your hand to crush feminism forever. Will you acknowledge Bayonetta? I want you to say it out loud so the scientists can make her notes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is at most a high E. Everything in this movie, like the characters have no depth. the story doesn't make sense. It has no weight. There's like no explanations, no good explanations, and I feel like we're like, oh yeah, it does more than Mortal Kombat. Okay, well, Mortal Kombat's a D. I would argue Mortal Kombat was a low D. And I think I liked Mortal Kombat more because it was just like a cooler concept. I understood what was going on, and this one I just had no idea. I felt like I was watching a comic book and not being able to read anything they were saying. The animation and the fights were the only thing for me that were like saving it a little bit, and to me that was just fine. That was not even like good. It was just fine, and to me that makes it an E. I would say this is for me either a low E, or sorry, a high E,
Jesus.
or a low, not a low E, not a low E. Either a high E.
He's putting it with Postal. Damn, he was like offended.
Either a high E or a low D, because like D's have like redeeming qualities, and this, like, to me a redeeming quality is not like, oh, I love this franchise. Like a super fan of these franchises is gonna like it if it's an F. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't think that's a redeeming quality, is like, you like this series so you'll like this movie. It's like, this movie needs to stand on its own. We're grading on a curve. So my final answer is D.
Interesting. We've set our
D or
pieces.
E? I thought you said E earlier.
I said E initially to kind of, and then D is kind of where I think this is a very low D for me at the end of the day. Because I think it had,
D for
it wasn't bad enough that I think it deserves an E, but definitely it's a low D for me.
Okay.
Like, I think I'm looking at all the movies here on this, and you guys have more movies under your belt, but this is worse than every single D in my mind that we have on the board.
I remember you hating Fatal Fury personally.
Fatal Fury. I don't really remember Fatal Fury, I guess. Maybe I'm...
Exactly.
He's been in that coffin
it's
in the lake for 500
definitely,
years.
It's been 500 years,
well,
yeah.
I think
You were
this
shooting
maybe
mad
is
about
also
Fatal
in-
Fury, so maybe that maybe you wanted to forget it.
Actually,
No,
now
no.
I'm remembering. I think this is equal to Fatal Fury for me, because I think I was also just as confused for that movie.
Interesting. Well,
I think I was misremembering that movie.
we're not going to argue each other's thoughts. We've said our pieces. I forgot that the two of you like to do tiers within tiers, where you have high, low, medium,
It's more
perhaps
fun
even
that way.
upper or lower. So I guess if I were to retroactively apply, I would say I'm mid C, so a CC, if you will. I guess though, ultimately, if David is D and Devin and I are both C, it still averages out to C. Is there any disagreements on that?
I mean, I think you guys. I just don't understand. I don't know. Maybe I just don't like anime. I think that's.
You're gonna love this
just-
next one.
Yeah,
next
I
three.
think that's honestly. Just
Are they all like fuck? Are they all?
Because
Yeah.
like.
No, I mean I feel you because I'm
I
not
just
like.
didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it. Like, this was not painful to watch, but like, man, I was bored. Man, I was bored.
No, yeah, I mean
For-
I
this
get where
was,
you're coming
like,
from. That was me with like
it was
Fatal
a hard
Fury
sigh
and
when I had to turn this on.
And I mean, that was definitely me with like Fatal Fury. Like, I think, I don't know, I'm just trying to always remember the curve. And like, yeah, I think if I had to give this a regular movie curve, I would put it down to E because, like, yeah, this is going to be a forgettable thing I'm not going to remember in 2 years' time. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to put this on my letterbox.
I don't know.
You know what
it
I mean?
now. I could not tell you. Here, wait, let me read.
Well, that
the
might be
ending
you.
That I
To be fair.
the ending is they tie up their mom and kill her, but also it was their dad? Question mark.
He was like the creation of
Yeah.
both. I mean, they in the
didn't
beginning of the
explain
movie,
that.
they showed
Well,
that-
they did though. They did.
You can't. Yeah, but you
they
can't
did.
just say like they do like a quick synopsis.
They
In
the beginning,
mentioned
they
that
show- they-
They mentioned that part a couple times. He's trying to resurrect his god, It requires both him and Bayonetta because they're the left eye and right eye. They're inside that thing like the Jaegers in Pacific Rim, and then Jean comes up and breaks Bayonetta out, and all that stuff made sense for what it was. It was the leading up to that parts where it is like, okay, it's the other aspects. The villain, I completely understood all that motivation. I follow that along perfectly fine. So I wasn't.
I'll defend David, like in the sense of like I do think, like I said, I think it helped that I played the first game and pretty much the storyline and plot points are the same, from what I remember, in terms of like characters and whatnot. But like in the beginning there, it is a little bit jargon heavy, but I think it also makes sense. Even if you don't remember the names of the things, I think the themes and like what is the most important part, which is there's this
experience with this game. So, like, you have lore. Like, you can't... It's like someone talking to you for 2 minutes and then being like, okay, we're going to test you because you need to remember these facts for the next hour and a half.
Well, I also don't think every movie needs to explain everything every 15 minutes to you. I think that's
I agree.
Attention
with that,
reason to, like, not...
I agree with that. But
I'm not saying this movie's great at that, personally. I'm just saying, like, that argument I sometimes think is kind of weak because I think a lot of people need something to be explained to them every 15 minutes, and if they don't, they think it's bad storytelling.
It's a media literacy thing where people don't think that the movie could be smarter than they are, in a sense of trying to actually have something.
Not saying that's what this movie is trying
to do. But I think the movie is just fine. I'm not sitting here being like this is really good or anything like that. I think it's fine. I'm going to give it more credit on this curve than I guess David is. That's all.
I think with all the definition of C, that's to me is like this is average
at the very least.
I wasn't bored. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like super entertained, but I like on a scale of energy, like I was just like, yeah, like I had fun for the hour and a half, but like, I'm not gonna watch this again.
I think I have higher standards for movies, and I think anime. To me, because you get it's like such a easier time with the visuals that like you better have the story friggin' nailed down because you're not having to like have all these sets built and makeup done.
I mean, drawing and doing all this is a lot harder. I think you don't realize how hard it is then. I don't know. I feel like telling a story on an animated sense is just as difficult.
Effort as shooting.
I don't agree with that.
It is different effort, and I don't know.
Effort.
It's not the same.
Right, it's not the same. It's different. Listen, I don't think we're going to be able to convince each other on this. I'm not gonna try to delve into a lot of our disagreements on stuff, considering some of the movies that we have disagreed on in the past. God-awful films that you thought were really good. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Really good.
I think David's
and that's fine.
That's what I appreciate.
People are allowed to like the things that they like, and they don't really need a reason to like them. If they want to like that type of stuff, that's fine.
A higher opinion of animes than I do, period. Like,
we don't look down on them. So, yes.
Right.
Yeah. To me, again, I'm sticking with C, and I think this averages out to C, at the very least. Maybe even A rank.
C's aren't we supposed to recommend these to like if you like video game movies, you'll probably like this movie?
I think for me that was always like B and up. I mean, I don't know if we don't have this written in like a doctrine somewhere for us to reference, but
that's why I'm trying to remember where maybe I know that was said somewhere.
To me, like, because B is like always, hey, it's more good than bad, and if you like video game stuff, you'll probably enjoy it the whole time. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of how I look. I think C is like average for a video game movie, where most people are probably not going to like it. So maybe in a sense, yeah, I guess maybe you like most of I think most people would like most of the Resident Evil movie, like just in terms of I'm saying the live action ones. But yeah, there's also like C, I think, has the widest range because there is so it's hard to compare to.
Well, you're weighing a lot of different elements against each other to net equal in the end of Like action and story, they are apples and oranges, and we're weighing them up and down in both directions. Like a lot of those Resident Evil movies have pretty good set pieces, but like, what the fuck happened in those movies? What's going on here? And I don't know. I don't know how many times I can try to state in different verbiage that this movie was pretty fine. Like, it is as middle of the road of a video game movie on this curve as you can get, for sure. There have been plenty worse, believe me.
I mean,
and plenty better,
and plenty better. Yeah.
I just disagree.
Well, to me, like I look at Dante's Inferno, and I feel the same vibes with that movie, with this movie. Like in terms of
that
the
made
action.
Sense to me though. Like I understood his ambitions. I understood the plot.
What were they? Like I mean, like his ambitions were my wife died.
Yeah,
and that doesn't mean it's like that's why I didn't care about that story.
It doesn't have to be deep. It just has to be fine for C.
I don't think Bayonetta's was deep either, though. I think it was Bayonetta's was just her memory's lost and she doesn't know her purpose, but she knows except for I need to kill the angels.
Well, I mean,
that was her memory lost.
They did say that in the movie early on a couple times. That was pretty clear.
Yeah, I think it's bad writing if that's not clear throughout the movie.
Well, I mean, some people are going to get it and some people aren't going to understand it, and that's why it nets out even in the end is a C, right?
Yeah.
So, Devin, where are you at this for average? I don't want to say it's getting a C without all of us,
Oh, no. I mean, I said earlier, I think I said it's like a lower C for me, in the sense of, it's fine. I think there's a lot better C movies if we're going really that deep into the C. I pointed to the live action Resident Evil, but I also agree with David where I'm not a big anime or animated fan. The animes I like are usually, to me, either have some really cool art shit going on or have something to tell me that isn't and I'm really I've only scratched the surface with anime. I was joking earlier with the Crunchyroll thing. I only got that because before we went to Japan, I was just trying to watch what was popular in Japan. So if we see any stuff there, I would understand it to a certain degree where I'm like, oh yeah. And then we really like Spy Family, for an example. And that isn't necessarily a deep show, but it's a good slice of life. Almost a show about parenting and the struggles of being a parent and also struggles of being a kid with parents, so, and it has elements of action for cause it's a spy show and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also very picky with that stuff because in most of my life, after I kind of got out of high school, I was I'm not going to watch, I don't even care about adult ones either, where I was I never give it, I watched Family Guy for a year and I'm oh yeah, the bits are kind of all the same after a while for me, whatever. Or The Simpsons never clicked for me. I'm not going to say Simpsons are bad, but I've just never got it really. I was yeah, it's funny, but I'm not dying of laughter, being oh my god, I'm just I get why people like this, so I want to defend David actually here more, where I'm just I even when I was watching this, I'm I knew David wasn't gonna like this because David I don't think likes animated stuff normally, so that's why I'm I'm not surprised you put it where it is. I'm
just trying to stand up for the average viewer,
and they're out there somewhere. If asking why you're trying to represent them, but
if they watch Max Payne and they're oh, okay, Max Payne's a C, I'll watch this. I like video games, I like movies, let's watch Max Payne. And then they're oh, this movie's also a C, let me watch this. They're gonna be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, but you wanted to put Dead Trigger and In the Name of the King as C, if not B. So I don't know about them either. All right,
I don't know that that's true.
If I was an eagle-eyed and perhaps vindicated viewer out there, I'd be huh, David really loves the movies he picks and hates the movies everyone else picks. I don't personally think that,
I gave Tetris an S when you gave it an A. It's just false.
I'm just teasing you. It's not true. No, ultimately, though...
David the product.
Well, I wanted to say fake news, but then I said false, and I was what is a false?
Ultimately, though, our opinions on this movie, while they might be different, don't actually matter. In fact, they're invalidated because none of us are women. So, We just can't actually speak about the issue.
So
Okay.
it gets a D for dick.
It does not. I'm sorry. Regardless of if Devin said low C, 2 C's and a D does not go down to a D. This is going to be
low.
C.
It was low D. It was D minus.
Well,
I mean,
I
that
was
is
in the
a
middle,
critique.
and Devin's
I
a
was
low
gonna say-
C, so it's not going to go higher.
That go.
You know?
I will say though,
that
like
goes down to a high D.
with the video game movie curve is always going to be moving because maybe in like 2 years if we're still doing these and still have enough movies to watch, I think we still have a lot to go. But
We got plenty to go. Every year,
I can see
fucking do more.
the curve, like the bell curve's going to only expand.
We might have to introduce new letters.
We might have to, but because I can see there's a reason why so many fall in C. I think is because it is the widest range. Because fine to me, the word fine
Means a
even
lot,
just
yeah.
means a lot compared to good and great. Like we always have good, great, fine, bad, awful, and I feel like fine is where a lot of even just movies fall. Not on the video game movie curve, but even on a regular movie curve, I would say most movies I've seen would fall in 3.5 stars. It was cool.
Yeah.
That's it. I know what I mean.
watched
So that's
it.
where I'm.
I was
yeah.
entertained for $15.
Yeah.
But no,
That's this
I'm just
movie.
to back up David though. I think part of why it always is tough with me and Ethan versus you. I think it's because of that, like you mentioned, where we've seen so many. So I think we've seen the bottom of the barrel. But to be fair, I feel like In the Name of the King, for example, was pretty bottom of the barrel on the curve. But
And hey, this whole journey is a journey of media literacy. It's getting better and better at understanding the art of film
disagree.
in all
I think
forms.
it's-
And
I think
I still
growing.
think we should we've talked about rewatching some ones that
Yeah.
we've either ranked in different levels where we've have I think a good example, because I know we referenced it, was in I think it was in Dead Trigger or in The Name of the King one. We were talking about I know David was trying to argue for it's so bad it's good. And we're no, I think a good example of that is actually Dead or Alive, and obviously you haven't seen that. But that's one of those movies I think we should all rewatch again to see how, one, do Ethan and myself still agree with it, but also if you agree with that and be okay, yes, I see that, or I disagree.
I
Or even
see the
Super
difference.
Mario Brothers, the 90s one.
yeah.
That's another good example, because a lot of people actually think that movie's trash, and we're kind of the opposite. I think it's started to become a cult following, but we're still definitely on the outliers of being nah, this
That
movie's
movie
actually
tore
kinda
apart
sick.
a marriage. The marriage of the directors. For those two examples, to kind of elaborate a little bit more, they just have something real cool going on that they're unashamed of doing, and they perform that pretty well. It's actually kind of shocking that those movies are damn, this is a lot of fun. There's a lot of effort and heart into what those are. That's where you get cult classics and B, not B movie, there's a different definition, but hell yeah, I love this bad movie. Pitch Black, fuck, they made a sequel? Cool. Oh my god, this is so interesting. The Chronicles of Riddick, etc. Versus Dead Trigger is who the fuck wants to watch this? Why would I sit through all of this movie? In the Name of the King is the same way.
I was actually higher
this is
on
just
Dead
different.
Trigger compared to Name of the King, and that's something I think me and Ethan will still disagree a lot when it comes almost in the tiers within the tiers. I think we both agreed it was E, but I was nah, man, Name of the King I think was even worse than Dead Trigger, and I remember Ethan was no, Dead Trigger is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
I wrote David a whole letter just to say that.
I feel
I mailed it to him.
Dead Trigger is similar to Bayonetta in that the plot didn't make any sense, but there was some cool action stuff in there.
See, I would even disagree on that. And I actually, to your point, I'm animation is so much easier than live action. Dog, Dead Trigger felt like they just put a camera on a tripod and said, go! And they didn't do anything else.
I
That's
still have
pretty
the
easy,
scene.
but-
I still have the scene in that movie where it's towards the end where they're we have to cross Obama Bridge,
Oh my god.
which was
That was
really.
really weird.
And then they're in the
was
middle of a
just
desert
random.
or whatever, or really just a big sand pit.
Yeah.
And the camera angles is so far away, and you see whatever his name is, the main guy, running, and there's 5 zombies chasing him.
But,
Just
Yeah.
really, he's really in trouble here. Okay, on Obama Bridge. I don't even know where the bridge is anymore. But
anyway.
that was funny. But yeah, good.
So,
time.
we have awarded this movie a C tier, which awards Devin so far 3 points, bringing us 21.02 to 24.02. But that's not all. There's more points. Oh well, yeah, points, but 0.02. What does he mean by that?
Really?
Yeah, a decimal.
Most of the time.
How did we get to these decimals?
Score.
And remember, some of these end up not having pages. That's happened to me twice.
Or they have a page but no reviews.
Yeah.
To warrant a
But
score.
this I feel like probably would have. So Devin,
It does.
explain
It
how
does.
page. What does that mean?
Yeah, so to kind of, in a way, one, add a tiebreaker to our fantasy points here, because there actually is a pretty solid chance with how some of these movies average out. It feels like that we don't want any ties, and, every good fantasy, game, you need to have some tiebreakers in there. In football, you have, catches are worth a point, and then whatever yards they would get is a decimal, for example. For this, we use Rotten Tomatoes popcorn meter, which is the user rating. So it's the average folks like us. We look at the critic score if there is any, but we don't add that to any of our points. But yeah, we use the popcorn meter, which is like the user review score. So if it's, let's say, 70, we move the decimal point over. It's 0.70 is the points we would add to it. And it's just kind of a fun one. It's a fun way to add as a tiebreaker, but also a way to see, hey, are we maybe on the same page as a general audience member? Are we above them, below them, or right there with them? And there's been some where they've been, I feel like, in line for the most part, but there's been some times where oh, this is actually higher. This was actually a lot lower than we would think. But and always with this, we always got to remember too, sometimes people who leave reviews are people who really like it and sometimes really hate it. So, but generally speaking, I still think it's a fun way to kind of just see reviews and then also add to our fantasy. Spiel over.
Yeah, sometimes, we're like, oh my God.
Yes.
One of us is like, oh my God, this movie is really good. I don't understand what you guys are talking about. This movie can't be an E. Dead Trigger's amazing. And its Rotten Tomatoes is 4%. On the user side. But then sometimes you're like, oh my God, this movie is just super popular. Of course people like it. And then you look and I forget which movie of mine didn't have a page at all. It's just the way it works out. So Devin is going to pull up that Rotten Tomatoes and just see how many points. I doubt it's going to bring you to 25. I would be shocked, but I mean, it's possible.
It is possible.
What is the score?
For fun, I have them guess.
Oh,
There's no
right.
points to this, but maybe next season I'll add a game within the game.
Oh, jeez.
David, you tell me.
We gotta do jumping jacks.
You're a certified hater of Bayonetta Bloody Fate 2013.
I already said Ethan talked over me. It was 23.
23. Okay, locking that in.
Nice.
What do you got, Ethan?
23 and me. I'm gonna win by saying 25 because I'm sure it's higher than that by at least a little.
I cannot imagine.
Well, you can keep imagining, David, because it's 48.
That's crazy to me.
Out of 100 ratings, and we can read some reviews like we've been doing.
True. I feel like people are so generous on ratings.
Hey, and what is a C? Probably
is
average.
A really low score.
Yeah, but 48 is almost 50, which is right in the middle.
That's a pretty low score, though.
I mean, we've gotten ones that, Ethan said, were
true.
4.
True. But it's the only people who know about this are fans of Bayonetta. So
In the Name of the King was a 22%.
I'm gonna read there's only one critic review.
It had a lot of famous people actually.
This one has one critic review. I'll read that, and then I'll read a couple of the audience reviews, which is average folks like us. So, critic review from Sebastian Zavala Khan from Moss Gamers, which looks like a Spanish. Yeah, it says full review in Spanish. But he says, the best thing about Bayonetta Bloody Fate is that it doesn't try to follow the game's plot beat by beat. He gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which is around a C. And then someone
Very
from
smug.
February 20th, 2023, Gave it 2.5 out of 5, so maybe in the D range if we're kind of loosely doing the math there. The animation and voice are great. However, the adapted video game narrative lacks the depth and expansion needed to fit the structure of a feature-length film. Then someone else named Death Sonic, wrote an effective masterpiece that doesn't fall short in terms of action either.
Bruh,
5 out of 5.
I mean, literally just a bot of a person.
I'm trying to see if there's any good ones here.
Oh,
3 out of 5. Bloody Fate tries to cram 10 plus hours of extreme and brilliant gameplay and story into half an hour anime film without care for the pace or the character development that the game pulled off so well. 3 out of 5. A lot of people were in February of 2023. Interesting. Maybe someone else did a review episode of
maybe the
Bayonetta.
Blu-ray was re-released or something like that.
Maybe. Or maybe it was put on Crunchyroll for the first time or something. Yeah.
Maybe.
And I mean, like, all of anime platforms in Western parts of the world are all Crunchyroll now because Sony bought them all and folded them all into Crunchyroll. So whatever that platform wants to show you, that is, I guess, what you watch. And then apparently in February of 2023, it was Bayonetta, Bloody Fate. I
should have asked this earlier, but there wasn't an English version, right? Because I
told you I watched it in English. But I watched the Blu-ray. I didn't
Crunchyroll, and it
just
gave me the Japanese version.
They usually have subtype stuff, but yes, no, it was dubbed in English with the game's voice cast. That's how I watched it, because I watched a Blu-ray rip of it.
I guess maybe I could also add to why I miss stuff is because I'm trying to read, but I'm also just zoning out.
Wait a second. David said it was like watching a comic book where he couldn't read anything, but now we know he actually had to read the movie. No. I don't know. Moving on to my thanks for the two of you for joining me and joining us out there on the audience. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. And please, David's so fucking expensive on the show. We can't afford to keep him for much longer. It's a bit. He likes every movie he's ever seen. He's just trying to nail it down for the sake of drama. And you love the drama. So like and subscribe and comment below how much you love. David is going to be free from now on, right? If you say that, he has to do that. But that is not
my chain
all. Your chain link. Because... That's not it. That's not it at all. Because it's time for everyone's new favorite game show, Going Platinum. Wow, there's applause in the background. Yeah. Hey,
the game show.
We do a game show in each and every single one of these movie reviews here on the Sonic Movie Show about the game, the movie, or an idea based on the game or the movie. I am the host every single time, and Devin and David pit themselves against each other. There are trophies awarded for each and every game show. David is the underdog with only 3 wins. Well, technically it was 4.
Well, he's actually the overdog because it's opposite day.
And Devin, as our heel, our villain of this story, with a total of 14 of these trophies. And David, I'm sorry, in prep for today, I had to make sure I had a 15 trophy, just in case. I hope we never see it, though.
Hey, why
That's
does it
up
say
to you.
5 and 10?
Because I forgot to change that to 0. Those were points from last time.
I was
when you lost.
As a real heel, I'm already have,
No, I just forgot to change. I just forgot to change that. Don't worry, it's being changed.
They gave me the chair early, and I get to beat up David with it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
those are the points from last time when you lost.
These games feel like.
Sorry. Those are the scores 0-0 to 0-0. I have selected for you guys 11 video games developed by Platinum themselves. Here's how this is going to work. I'm going to read off the name, and this isn't a real or fake thing. I know this is going to sound like it. I'm going to read off their name, the platform that they released on, and the year, or the general month to year that they were released on. Some of these have re-releases. I will list all those as well. Your job is to guess how many copies were sold. go over, and it's an automatic loss. So whoever gets closest to the number of copies each of these video games has sold will gain 1 point. But if you go over the value, that I will eventually say it's an automatic loss.
I feel like the first couple are gonna be
I gave
losses
hints
for both of us.
throughout my beginning diatribe about the history of this company. Hope you listen.
But the audience doesn't even know because this is technically sometimes cut from that.
I didn't have subtitles on, and you were talking in Japanese.
Yeah. Konnichiwa?
Can you
They
explain
kept that
again
in that
what-
movie.
You
Oh,
said
yeah.
how many copies of Platinum's games? Who is Platinum's games?
Platinum is the developer of the Bayonetta.
This does not help
didn't
David's
listen.
case.
I said the whole thing. He doesn't listen, and he wants to tell me.
I mean, I'm zoning out.
How to
I'm
do my
trying
job.
Like, my mind is already like I've already lost this game.
Well, David,
I'm
I
just
root
trying
for you
to-
every single time, though as the host and
I root
commissioner,
for
I
me
cannot
too, but-
rig it in your favor. I do
As
expect
much as
you
I've
to pay
begged and
attention.
pleaded,
Just like,
I've sent you a lot of money.
apparently
You
you
rig it in my
say your
favor, but-
friend tax nets at 0. What the fuck?
No one's gonna get that reference.
Yeah, no one will get that
We're
reference
doing way
because
too
we're
many
not
deep
friends.
cuts.
That's because the large amounts of cash I'm sending you.
All right.
And it's still
So
not
you guys
enough to
understand?
Postal system.
Every single question is going to be one of the games,
ready.
and then you are going to guess what the value or how many copies were sold. You just don't want to get over. Closest person gets the point. We will start with David is going to guess first, and then Devin, and then Devin will guess
Great.
first, and then David, and then David will guess first, and then Devin. That's called the snake draft.
I'm gonna
These
say
two
10.
forget
He's
them.
gonna say 11.
Number of copies.
How do you know my strats?
Number of
Wow.
copies.
He
You
is
don't
paying
want to say
attention to
10 or
that.
11. I'll just put it at that.
Yeah, it's an example, Ethan.
Oh, okay.
Let's get it going. Let's get it going here.
Our first
I
game.
have no
for-
frame.
I'm
of
trying to get it
reference for
going.
how
Listen.
many-
Our first game. Devin's gonna have fun with this edit. He's gonna draw a
This is
mustache
gonna
on
be
you
brutal.
right now.
So
Our first
brutal.
game is Mad World, that black and white Wii
Mad
game
World.
on the Wii. It was released exclusively for the
Mad
Nintendo Wii
World.
in March of 2009. David, how many copies do you think this game sold?
I don't know. Fucking 17,500.
Okay,
I don't
David-
know how many copies of games are sold. I've
Dave-
never heard of this game. 3?
David says 17,053. Devin, how many copies do you think Mad World on the Wii sold?
17,056.
Yeah. See?
Well, David, you could go a little bit higher. That's all I'll say. Because it was very
What's
easy
the
for
point? I
Devin
could have said 10 million. It would have been just as wild of a guess for me.
I guess, yeah, technically 17,000 is
I don't-
closer.
I don't listen to game quantity sold. I have 0 frame of reference. It could be 10 for all I know.
David's lost so many at this point that he's
This
a
is the
sports
man who
team.
wanted
the
to
locker
tell
room
me
is
that the
lost
Steam
cause.
Deck is in
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
market as the Nintendo Switch.
I don't have anyone
Who
in my
doesn't know that
corner,
there's
you know?
hundreds of millions of Switches sold and not even 1 million Steam Decks sold.
Yeah, but I've never heard of this game.
Devin wins. I'm guessing
many?
just a couple points over because the total is 780,000 copies or 0.78
All right.
million.
I was pretty close. Honestly, only a 10th place off.
Okay. All right. Our next game is the Nintendo DS game that was the second game on their list. I mentioned that earlier. It's called Infinite Space for the Nintendo DS, and it was released in June of 2009. Devin, how many copies do you think this game sold? Using your memory of what I said at the beginning of this episode, which the audience does not hear.
Well, 2009, pretty bad year. I remember it. Economy wise, so are people buying DS games? I don't know. I'm gonna say 12,900.
12,900. David.
Sorry, I meant
Ethan better
100
roast you as much as he roasted
No,
me.
no. Sorry, I meant add another 0 to that. That's what I meant.
Okay.
You tell me your answer. I'm not going to do
120,000?
math on your behalf.
Because what you said earlier, you said 15,000. Yeah, 12,000. No.
He said like
God.
170,000 or something crazy.
Okay,
Sorry,
the first game had
120,000 is what I'm thinking of.
780,000 or 0.78 million. So how much do you think this game sold?
120,000. Sorry.
Okay. Devin says
I'm bad at math.
120,000
Everyone knows this.
copies.
I don't know digits.
120,002.
Okay. I got really good news because one of you is closer than the other. And that person, as I slowly stall
So
here,
it's David. Because
is
if we go
David.
over, we lose. Yes.
Because the total, this was, and I'll throw this out there, their worst selling game at 200,000 copies or 0.2 million. I have them written down in terms of million. And by the way, all of this data was taken off vgcharts.com. There were some games I had to omit because they're like, I don't know how many copies this sold on this platform. I'm like, I just want all of them. So I skipped some games for that reason. All right, on to question 3. The video game that we talked about for a whole hour and a change here, Bayonetta, initially released on the PlayStation 3
Hardly know her.
and Xbox 360, then later ported to Wii U, then later ported to PC, then later ported to Nintendo Switch, then re-released again in a remaster on PS4 and Xbox One. All of these releases were on October of 2009, October of 2014, April of 2017, February of 2018, and February of 2020. David, how many copies of Bayonetta in total across all platforms was released or sold?
I think I basically need to nail this number for Devin not to get the point. So I'm gonna say 2,500,000 575,000
Bruh.
263.
Wow, you're getting so specific.
2.57
Yeah.
what?
I like it.
2.5 million.
Okay. 2.5. Okay, yes.
It doesn't
2,500,000.
really matter. I'm
Devin,
not gonna nail it.
how many copies of Bayonetta do you think exist?
2.5 million in one.
Yeah.
This is just how we're going to go this whole time.
That's how you win this game.
Now, to be fair, I've never paid attention to The Price is Right, nor have I ever had the rules affirmed to me. I assume it's just simply just whoever gets closest and don't go over the number. So I don't know if this works out in that show or not. Devin is the winner. Someone has playing a TV really loudly.
Yeah.
But Devin gets the point because the total is the current sales are 3.66 million copies sold.
You love to see it. Big W.
Okay. On to question and game number 4. This is Shinji Mikami's only game at Platinum, Vanquish, which was initially released for the PlayStation 3 and then Xbox 360, later ported to the PC, and then later in the same remaster with Bayonetta, brought to PS4 and Xbox One. Those release dates are October of 2010, May of 2017, and February of 2018. Devin, how many... That said multiple releases is the main point. On different systems and on PC. Devin, how many copies of Vanquish do you think
I've
were
never even heard
sold?
of this, honestly, so...
Some Dino Crisis fan.
Everything came after Dino Crisis. It doesn't matter.
All of these
we
games
had
did.
it good. We had it good, and then we threw it away. 7 million.
Devin,
5 million.
5 million copies of Vanquish.
5 million's locking it in. 5 million. Yeah, 5 million one.
5 million and 1 copies of Vanquish. David, how many
5,000,002.
copies? Both of you are incorrect. You've both gone way over because the actual
Okay, that's
total
a win for me then.
You don't get the point because you went over.
I'm up one,
Well,
though.
yeah, technically you're up one. Vanquish sold a total of 0.97 million copies, so just under 1 million copies sold. And we're going to move on to question number 5, a.k.a. game number 5. This one is the last game that they released with Sega before moving on to other ventures.
Sega.
Anarchy Reigns, only released for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in July of... Why did I say 5 July? Of 2012. July of 2012. David, how many copies of Anarchy Reigns do you think Platinum was able to sell?
Probably like 3 or 4. Oh.
3.
I don't know. 1.7 million.
Okay, Devin?
Literally no clue.
He said 1.7. Never heard of this either. I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 850,000.
Okay, Devin says 850,000. Both of you are still over. This game sold a total
I know you were saying how they started to sell bad, like after Bayonetta. And I'm like, 850, I feel like it's pretty reasonable, but damn, that's pretty bad.
It sold 390,000 copies, or 0.39 million. Yeah.
Damn.
Next game. So game number 6, question number 6. I wonder how you guys are going to fare with this one. A technical Hideo Kojima Productions production developed by Platinum Games, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, released for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and then later PC. In February of 2013, it was the first game I had to use my license at GameStop to purchase because it was rated M. Came out 3 days after my birthday. As the PC version came out in January of 2014, a year later. Devin, how many copies of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance do you think have been sold?
The Metal Gear Rises.
Sure.
I see. I don't know, like in terms of like how well the other Metal Gears sold to like put that in reference from just like what is the floor? Because even if this one sold the worst, I still think it can't be too much lower than the other ones because it's just such a popular franchise. I'm trying to remember like how much like GTA, and I know it's not the same comparison, but like I don't even know what the ceiling is. I think that's what makes this really tough. That's why I've been like kind of lowballing these. 11 million.
Final answer?
Not million.
You
Sure,
seemed
why
hesitant. 11 million. Okay.
I'm hesitant.
David, how many copies of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance do you think sold?
I was thinking that it was going to be higher than 11 million. In my mind, it was closer to 20. So
Okay.
I'm going to go 11 million and 1.
11 million and 1 versus 11. Well, both of you are still over. Despite being a
Really?
part of a very popular franchise,
How, dude?
it sold a total of 2.69 million copies.
Okay, at least it was in the million. I thought for a second you were going to say like 20,000
Now,
or something crazy. Like
The thing to point
No
out,
one bought
I don't
it.
think it would have even gotten close to a million. This data point was captured before the PC version got like memes sold like crazy to Zoomers. So this is pre Weird Curious, the YouTube videos where a guy says memes are like the only thing that matters types of thing where people are listening to the music and all that. Because again, this is all taken from vgcharts.com. But I believe it. Yeah, 2.69 million. So
not a sponsor, by the way.
we're not sponsored, no. Okay.
Yeah.
On to our 7th game. This one released exclusively to the Wii U within its first year. The Wonderful 101, released in August of 2013. David, how many copies do you think this game sold?
What is the name of the game again?
Yeah, Devin
Completely
made noises
glaze-eyed.
over it. The Wonderful 101.
You know, like coding. Everyone loves a
Yeah,
good
classic.
code.
Definitely can tell the amount of copies sold here is definitely I mean, it's crazy that it could be under. I'm just gonna be so pissed if it's over what Metal Gear sold. I don't know. 999,999.
A point under 1 million. Understood.
Yeah.
Devin?
I'm gonna go 659,000.
Devin says 659,000.
I think this is. No one bought this. That's my goal.
To David's 1 million minus
no
1.
frame of reference.
Not the 1 million minus 1. Both of you are still over.
What?
This game sold really bad. 0.36 million.
Last time we got a point.
I almost
The
guessed
first
25.
3 questions.
I almost guessed 25, and I still would have been wrong. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Okay. We have
How many are
4.
there?
We got 4
4
left.
All right,
Still-
I
still
gotta close the
anybody's
door.
game.
I'm letting David hang around here. This
Still
is usually where I
anybody's
lock
game.
in.
Our next game is Bayonetta 2. Initially released for the Wii U and then later brought to Nintendo Switch. Wii U release was September of 2014. Switch release was 2 days after my birthday in February of 2018. David, or who? I forget who's up first. I forget who went last time.
David went first last time.
Okay, so Devin, how many copies do you think this sold? Bayonetta 2.
It's on the Switch, though. Everyone has a Switch. For 5.3 million.
5.3
Lock it in.
million. David, how many copies of Bayonetta 2 do you think sold?
Bayonetta, I mean, it's
Then
popular.
bet lower. Bet lower.
It's fucking popular, though.
Then bet
Is
higher.
this the last question? How many questions are we going up to?
Bro, we literally...
Answer the question. Answer the
4.
question.
We're going to 11.
We're going to 11?
This does not
That's
help
such
your
a
case
weird-
when you're saying, I
such a
don't get the
weird
story
number.
of the movie.
It's just like...
It's a
I
weird
don't-
number because I went and listed all the games, and these are the ones that I could actually get sales data for. And I was like, fine,
Yeah.
11's fine. Because I thought this would go
Um,
faster.
Yeah, one higher than Devin's number.
Okay. You're both wrong
win
yet
that one.
again.
Anytime I go first, and even if we don't get any points, it's a win for me. That's how I'm looking at it.
I mean, so far, yeah, I guess that's working out that way.
Holding the lead.
1.51
to go
million
first.
copies. It was a Wii U game, which did not help it. And then the Switch version sold almost all of those copies. It was like 1.2 million sold on Switch.
Damn.
About 300,000 sold on the Wii U. I pre-ordered it. I own a copy. Okay, we are on to our 9th question. This one is another famous Platinum game, much like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Nier Automata.
Oh,
David,
shit.
how many
think I know
copies of
this.
Nier Automata do you think sold?
I feel like
What is this on? What platform?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to say all that stuff. You're right. Thank you for catching me. It's released initially for PlayStation 4, and then released a month later on PC, a year later on Xbox One, and a few years after that on Nintendo Switch. February of 2017, March of 2017, June of 2018, and October of 2022. Those that listened to the beginning of this episode could have a ballpark.
And has an anime on Crunchyroll that I've watched one episode of, and I'm like, yeah, it's like the game.
Oh God. This is so like I cannot even wrap my brain around these numbers.
Think of it like cars sold.
7. No, I don't think it's that high. 5 million
You're going to make me write this down.
999,999.
Okay, a point below 6 million.
If you want to label it like that.
For the audio listeners who don't get the visual of these numbers anyway, they might need that. Devin, Nier
I've been
Automata.
writing these all out on my camera.
I feel like I saw somewhere in the last year, like on their Instagram, because it's one of the few like I think Platinum Games is actually one of the few, or I think I follow the Near Instagram, one of those. And I swear I saw the number of either 6 million or 6.5, which is funny that David said under 1. So I'm going to say 6 million.
Dude. I'm good.
Okay. For the first time in forever, someone gets a point. That person is Devin. It was not 6 or 6.5. It is 9 million copies sold as of
See,
December.
I had the number upside down. I had the other number upside down.
They said recently, like, hey, the Nier Automata has sold 9 million copies. Yeah, that game was expected to sell, like, hopefully 800,000 copies a lifetime, and within its first 6 months sold 2 million copies. Huge success.
It was Platinum's games Among Us.
In a sense, I think Among Us was a sleeper in like a couple years, but sure. All right, 2 games left. It is possible for David to tie, and we do have a tiebreaker.
No, it's not.
Just need to win this
No, it's
one.
not.
Just need to win.
Okay, well, if you have a loser mentality, then I guess you'll always lose, right?
Look at my
And like Devin doesn't have winner's mentality, so it's not like it's hard to beat him.
I'm the underdog.
Then act like it. Astral Chain,
I'm a
published
loser.
by Nintendo, released exclusively for the Nintendo Switch in August of 2019. Devin, how many copies of Astral Chain were sold?
I remember
You
this.
play as
I
a
remember-
cop, or at least it says
Ooh.
police on your chest.
Ooh.
What is this for?
Nintendo Switch. Nintendo published the game.
That's right. You play as a cop, though. I'm going to go 1,312,000.
Okay. 1.312? Is that how I'm supposed in terms of
Yeah,
millions?
1,312. Yeah. That's
Okay.
correct.
Oh my God, Devin, fuck off. Devin or David.
What? That's my number.
It's a very valid number. David. I had to write that out in order to get the joke. David, how many copies do you think sold?
I don't know. I'm really hoping this is a stinker. I'm gonna say 600,000.
And David says 600,000. I wrote a K next to that one. Boy, howdy. I understand it was a joke. Devin, you are like 18,000 under the total value.
Oh.
The game sold 1.33 million.
Wow. Nothing
copies.
but net at the buzzer.
Yeah.
GG.
We still have one more game. I want to do it anyway because I think we're coming full circle. It is not their last game.
Sold one copy. Sold one.
Bayonetta 3 for the Nintendo Switch, released in October of 2022. David, how many copies?
2,636,400.
Devin?
I'm going to go 2 over.
Okay, you're both over. It is 1.07 million
Repeat
copies.
what was the number you
I don't
picked?
remember.
No, I'm just kidding.
It was too many digits. I'm really bad at remembering that many numbers, especially.
Well, all right, here is our score, our final total. Devin, oh my God, I can't believe you let him do this, David. David.
These games are rigged. You give them the answers beforehand, dude.
Oh my God. The sad part
That's
is
why I
I
only got
don't.
4.
I could have been doing that for you, David,
You
but
do,
apparently you
you
don't pay
do.
attention.
You hint it to him in your secret group chats. You're like, oh, I wonder how many millions of copies this specific game sold. And Devin's like, oh yeah, that.
I
that is
knew ahead of
interesting. Let me
time,
go look that
obviously,
up."
what this game show is about. So I made sure in my long preamble about the history of Platinum, I sowed the seeds of like, hey, they started out with Sega and like, Bayonetta did fine, but then all the other ones are like, not doing all that well. But then Metal Gear turned things around. Then they had a lot of license trash, but then Nier Automata, and then staff was leaving, and like the buyouts, and I guess that just went all over our heads. But I'm glad we at least paid attention to Bayonetta Bloody Fate, just like the folks back home paid attention to this movie review. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, folks, David's so fucking expensive. It's annoying. We need to replace him. And we can do so
I
with
charge
your
by the
help.
minute.
Like, subscribe, and share below. Write in the comments, hashtag free David. And maybe one day he'll free himself from us and have this podcast
renegotiate.
all to himself. Yeah, renegotiate. Yeah, well, David, you need a union then. There's a subscribe button there.
I'm going to do it privately and then pay myself union dues.
Okay. There's a box that should have something else you can watch there. I mentioned a video that's written in the description, I think, if I remember.
I mess it up every time. I always get back.
I actually got it right the very first time today, and I was like, nope, you got to point directly to your left, David. You're pointing at me. And I'm going to point at you. There we go. Thank you. And I will just say, we got 3 movie reviews left. One for each of us. If you enjoy these game shows, I know this one was very tough. They're going to be extra special for the last 3. And David was muted there. Thank you and goodbye. And as we always like to end the podcast with our favorite saying, Bayonetta out.
Boo!
Buh! Yourself.
Boo!